So the big news coming out of AEW Grand Slam tonight, besides Jon Moxley becoming a three-time world champion and the Acclaim winning the tag titles and Chris Jericho winning the Ring of Honor title, which I don't think he'll hold for long, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. The big news, probably that topped them all, was the debut of Saraya, the former Paige in WWE, now in AEW. And I'll tell you this, when she came out, yeah, there's no doubt she blew the roof off Arthur Ashe Stadium. She blew the roof off of it. And what's funny is the reports came out earlier yesterday, by the time you watch this, which will be today, Thursday, when reports came out that on Wednesday that she was talking with Tony Khan, people were, okay, not only were they happy to hear, okay, looks like, it sounds like she's going to come back into wrestling, she's going to probably debut with AEW. Nobody had an idea she was going to debut last night, which she did. But what's funny about it is this is very similar to reports that came out about Karrion Kross returning to WWE, possibly coming back to WWE, and the same night, on the same day, he showed up on SmackDown and was instantly inserted into the main event scene. So here you have Saraya, the former Paige, making her debut, looking like she's going to be put automatically into a program with Britt Baker, because it looks like they're trying to set up the idea that there's a story between them. What that story is, we do not know. It might go back to the days of WWE and NXT when Britt was there, maybe even before that. We don't know. But whatever they set up, I will agree with a lot of people when they say this, they got to set it up right. They got to build it right. But here's the thing, though. But with Saraya signing with AEW, one, we don't know the extensity of her contract. Like, how long is it? What's the how long is her contract, like, timetable wise? How long is she signed in, locked in for? We don't know. We don't know if it's a contract that only has her wrestling exclusive for AEW and everything, because she's going to make an appearance for a wrestling promotion in her home country this weekend. So we don't know if it, after that she's going to just be exclusively, for AEW. We don't know. We don't know if, the extensity of the, number of days throughout the duration of a contract, depending on how many years she's with them. We don't know the duration of days that she will compete if she does. And that's one thing a lot of people, they do acknowledge, but kind of overlook. And I say this with all due respect to those that I follow here on YouTube. But, but here's the thing. With Saraya, you got to have a tryout match. And I'm sure they've had, multiple tryout matches, and she's passed them. I'm not denying that. But for certain that despite having these tryout matches, they're still going to want to talk to the doctors. And they're going to probably show her doing these tryout matches, taking these bumps, if she's taken some bumps. And the doctors, upon seeing this, will either decide, okay, yeah, she's good to go, she can go back in the ring, compete, or they just might tell her right then and there, and AEW, yeah, I want you to pause it right here. I want you to notice the little bit of wince that she has in her eyes when she takes that bump, or she's done this. Yeah, we wouldn't recommend her getting back in the ring at all. And that might be it. They might have to just, the doctors might tell her, look, we know you signed with AEW because you want to wrestle, but because of your spinal condition, spinal callosis, or whatever it's called, and, the injury to your neck in the past, the severity of it, we can't chance it. They might even say, yeah, you look good in these tryout matches and everything, or these, warm-up matches that you're having, but we can't chance it because these are warm-up matches. These are tryout matches, not, full-on legit matches like you want to have. So they might tell her no. They might put the kibosh on it. And if that was to happen, not saying it will, but if that was to happen, if you're Tony Khan, what do you do? What do you do? You just spent millions of dollars to sign probably one of the hottest names in women's wrestling today, one of the hottest free agent names in women's wrestling today, a woman who is solely, along with the likes of an AJ Lee, solely responsible for building the foundation of what became women's wrestling today in WWE, Impact Wrestling, well, not Impact, but basically WWE, AEW, and other places, are one of the sole reasons for the revitalization of women's wrestling being taken seriously and treated on equal footing with the men. And, if you're Tony Khan and you've gone out and spent this money to bring her in, and then you find out that she cannot do what you want her to do or she wants to do because the doctors are going to put a kibosh on it, even though they could probably clearly see in the videos, that she can go, she's fine, but they don't want to take a chance because of the difference between tryout, warm up, and the legit real deal. What do you do with her then? How do you alter your plans, that you had for her because of that? What do you do? And I think what could potentially happen, and I'm not saying she's not going to get back in the ring and wrestle. She is 30 years old. She is, honestly, as much as I hate saying this, she is 13 years younger than me. And she can still, and if she still has the passion to go, she can go. She can go, basically. If she still has the passion to go, she could probably still go. But again, what I'm trying to say is it's not her decision. Now, it could be her decision. It could be her sole responsibility and AEW's if, let's say, she signs a waiver. If she signs a waiver. And what that waiver would mean is that whatever happens to her, it's not AEW's fault. It was not the doctor's fault. It's not potentially AEW's fault or Tony Khan's, it's hers. And heck, if Tony Khan wants to sign a waiver too, saying, hey, I'll take responsibility if anything happens to her, I'll pay the bills, then so be it. If he is this desperate to have her wrestle for the women in the women's division, give them that, that bump, that shot in the arm they need, as people have been saying, then if I'm Tony Khan and the doctors are trying to put the kibosh on not allowing one of my biggest signings to not compete, then if I'm Tony Khan, I sign a waiver. I say, look, we both agreed, she'll sign a waiver, I'll sign a waiver, and whatever happens, we'll both take full responsibility. You won't have to be called upon or anything. We'll take full responsibility, and that's it. Wipe the doctors, wipe AEW's hands, clean up the entire situation, and go from there. If Paige is determined to get back in the ring, because like I said, she can show them all the video on phone, on a computer, on a laptop, on TV, all she wants, of her taking bumps, in rehearsal matches, warm-up matches, tryout matches. And despite the fact that she could look good, as I said, they could probably say, yeah, but there's a big, they could probably say, yeah, you look good and you look like you could still go. But then they could probably put the kibosh on it by saying, however, there's a difference between trying out, warming up, and rehearsing, and legitimately going. And they don't want to, and they probably don't want to chance that. Now, I'm not saying, like I said, she's not going to wrestle. For all I know, she can come out next week and announce that her first match is going to be, in several weeks at the next themed Dynamite event or whatever themed event Dynamite's going to have. She could say her first match is going to be then, and she's going to face Britt Baker, and go from there. But we'll have to we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, look, I'm not saying. Let me make this perfectly clear. I'm not saying I don't want to see her wrestle. I do. I mean, she's 30 years old. She's still got a long ways to go. We've seen men and women wrestle into the 70s or the freaking 80s, even 90s, believe it or not, at the very latest. And that's a fact. That's the truthful fact. And if, like I said, if she believes she can still go in that ring, then, if she still believes she can still go in that ring, then I have no doubt that she can. But here's the reality of it. Here's the reality. She's going to have several different options. One, the number one option is the doctors clear her and she's good to go. Two, if they don't clear her, then she has to, the second option would be, if they don't clear her, sign a waiver and maybe have Tony Khan sign one as well. Both take responsibility for whatever happens. Or three, she assumes a role of an authority figure for the women's division or a manager for some of the baby faces. I'm just saying. She could have three major options. One, she gets cleared. Okay, good. We can go from there. No problems. Second, doctors don't clear her. She could sign a waiver. Along with Tony Khan, sign waivers. Basically free the doctor's hands and maybe even AEW's and Warner Brothers Discoveries, if WBD is concerned about it, wipe their hands clean of what could potentially happen to Saraya in the ring. Or three, if she can't get in the ring and they won't even accept a waiver being signed, then she either can be assigned as an authority figure for the women's division, as she was, on SmackDown as the GM, or she can be assigned as a manager for the baby faces. That way she can counteract the likes of the baddies for Jade, that represent Jade, or she can, counter the, the likes of Rebel and such for Britt and Jamie Hayter. There are options, but I know the number one option she wants, and we all want, to be honest, is for her to wrestle. Because the talent you got there in that women's division right now, with her being added, possibly as an active participant to that women's roster, the matchups there that you have, potentially lined up for her to be part of, are dream matches people that are fans of women's wrestling have been wanting and dying to see. Saraya against Athena, Saraya against Toni Storm, Saraya against Britt Baker, Saraya against Serena Deeb, Saraya against Hikaru Shida. The list goes on. Saraya against Jade Cargill, Saraya against Kira Hogan, Saraya against Diamante, who wrestles this Friday. Diamante. I mean, the list is endless, just about. You have Saraya against Riho, Saraya against Imaru Sakura, Nyla Rose, Ruby Riott. I mean, again, the list is endless. I mean, Ruby Soho, I should say. The list is endless, guys. The list is endless of potential matchups she could have. Saraya and Thunder Rosa. Excuse me, I'm just saying. Saraya and Jamie Hayter, I think I mentioned that one. Again, the list is endless. The list is endless. Of the matches she could have. But again, it all depends on the outcome. And here's the true test of that, okay? Here's the true test. If she can take a bump, let's say she gets attacked from behind. She takes a bump, but then she gets back up on her own, much to the surprise of, let's say, a Britt Baker, Britt attacks her from behind, then, hey, that's all the proof we need that she's good to go. That's all the proof we need. But, again, it is all depending on what the doctors tell her. You know, like I said, like I mentioned, she can show them all the footage she wants. You know, she can, show them all the footage she wants of trying out for her return match. You know, warming up, training for her return match in the ring. You know, they can, she could show them all the, all the footage they want, and she might look, good and crisp, in the ring once again, like she's never lost a step. But they could still put the kibosh on it, even if they see her maybe wince once, by either holding her back or her neck. If she does that just once, but she's okay for the rest of it, they'll put the kibosh. They'll put the kibosh. They'll say they'll ixnay her return to the ring for good. And like I said, they could even deny waivers being signed because they don't want to risk it. And WBD, believe it or not, people may say they don't have an influence. They could. And if you think David Zaslav and his crew want to have, a controversial moment of, okay, this girl's been known to have injuries, life-altering injuries and stuff, that career-ending injuries, do you think they're going to want to live with the fact or enjoy the fact that, in her first match back, she could get potentially injured and that's it? Do you think they want a chance at themselves? Some of you may say, well, that they're not going to have a say in it, and that might be true to an extent, but believe it or not, they do. They do have say in what happens around there. Again, they've had the House of Dragon theme thing going on, the Shark Week thing going on. Come on, they have a say. And if they, and if even though they might be excited that Saraya is part of AEW and is a boost for that women's division, they may not want a chance her getting injured in her first match back on Dynamite, which is aired on one of their networks. They may not want that. So, we'll have to see what happens in the near future. Again, it all depends, in my opinion, one of the main things that it depends on is the structure of her contract. How many dates is she going to compete in the ring? How many dates she's not going to compete in the ring? And all that. What's the longevity of that contract and the status, the stipulations and stuff. That's going to be one thing, her return to the ring depends on. The other, again, like I said, is the doctors. Because, despite all the evidence she can give to them saying, hey, look, I'm good to go. Look at this video. Look at these pictures. If they notice one little wince of pain, that's it. She could forget about a comeback. And again, she'll have three options. That number one option is, being cleared. The second option, which I just kind of alluded to, is her not being cleared and either signing a waiver along with Tony Khan to get cleared and, clean, and wash the doctor's hands and WBD's hands and even AEW's hands to an extent, wash it clean of anything that any responsibility of what would happen to her from an injury standpoint. Or three, they ixnay any waiver being signed, and she's given a choice of either being an authority figure or being somewhat of a manager for the baby faces going up against the heels. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do with her. But yeah, I do agree it is a huge acquisition for AEW. I'm not denying that. That women's division has needed something like this for quite some time. I do agree with it. But here's the thing. For those, again, that I respect and watch here on YouTube that talk about wrestling, on a daily, if not weekly basis, you could say that AEW wouldn't have signed her if she couldn't wrestle. And you have a right to your opinion. But again, you have to remember, unless she can prove to us she can take a bump, like if somebody attacks her from behind and she gets back up, no issues whatsoever, fine. That's all the evidence we need. But even if that doesn't happen and she goes to the doctors and shows them footage of her taking bumps in the ring during training for her comeback, and they notice maybe she wincing just once or whatever, or she's holding her neck or her back, they're gonna ixnay her return. They're gonna ixnay it. They may even ixnay any waiver being signed because they don't want to take a chance. But we'll see what happens. I mean, again, I look at the list of the women that I mentioned that she can get in the ring with, and as far as AEW goes, those are dream matches in any women's wrestling roster, period, for her to take part in. Like I said, her and Britt Baker, her and Jamie Hayter, her and Athena, her and Thunder Rosa, her and Toni Storm, her and her and Imuru Sakura, her and Riho, her and Hikaru Shida, her and Serena Deeb, Jade Cargill, Kira Hogan. The list, is endless. Her and Nyla Rose. The list is endless. But again, it all depends on whether or not she gets the okay. Yeah, she can sign with AEW all she wants, but unless she gets the okay, that's another story. I mean, yeah, Daniel Bryan and Edge came back when they were told they never would, and they've succeeded. They've taken it up. Heck, they've turned it up a notch. I'm not denying that. But here's the thing, and this is unfortunate. She could point that out to the doctors that may say, no, you're not getting back in the ring. And like I said, she could point that out to the doctors, and they could say, unfortunately, and I say this with all due respect, no offense, that the difference between the male body and the female body is the female body's more fragile, and hers is like glass. Just one mistake, and that's it. So, again, we'll see what happens. I want to see her wrestle. I do. I want to see these matchups that I just mentioned take place. But it's all up in the air right now. We'll see what occurs. And that's all I'm going to say. But let me know what your thoughts are on Saraya, the former Paige, debuting in AEW last night at Grand Slam. What do you think about her arrival there? Do you think it's a boost to the women's division that has been that has been desperately needed, not soutly needed, but desperately needed? And do you think she is cleared to compete, or do you think maybe it's going to be maybe for Tony it might be a waste of money to sign her, because maybe she won't be able to compete. I hope she does. But what are your thoughts? Comment below, live chat during the premiere, like the video, and until then, I'm out. I will talk to y'all later.